What is your assessment in macroeconomic situation of the country?
Yeah, so the team is back. We have staff level agreement on the program. The macroeconomic situation in Nepal is improving. Last year, growth was very low at 0.8%. This year, we see not extremely strong, but a recovery. We're expecting 3.5% growth. That's on the back of adequate and good fiscal and monetary policies. It also reflects, some improvement in the external environment. We see more tourist arrivals and in general a degree of better exports, and so the balance of payments has improved from a big current account surplus to a relatively manageable current account surplus. We are accumulating reserves. Reserves are quite adequate. Inflation remains still high. We expect it on a slow downward path that reflects still high food prices, and it also linked on very much to the inflation developments in neighboring countries.
Last year, Fund expressed a bit dissatisfaction as government of Nepal have taken import restrictions policy. They have written that also in their reports. Now, staff level agreement have been placed within a time frame. How do you see the Nepal's progress on the ECF's conditions?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the outset, we have reached staff level agreement. That means that at the staff level, we have assessed the program to be progressing well. As I mentioned, we have seen on the external front a significant improvement in the current account, in spite of the fact that the import restrictions were lifted, which is a very good thing, because as we expressed before, import restrictions can lead to a lot of distortions, a lot of circumvention, and that had negative impact on the overall performance of the economy. In addition, during the program so far, we have seen a number of key structural reforms, measures taken, both on the fiscal side as on the monetary and the central banking side. So, taken all of this together, we see the economy progressing according to the program, and with a very positive outlook. All right. I mean, let me just first explain that the program is the government's program. It is not the IMF program. So, program is agreed with the government, and the measures under the program that become conditions, either structural, quantitative performance criteria, or structural benchmarks, are agreed and in line with the government program. And just quite simply, maybe in layman's terms, those are markers to see, how the program is going. If you don't meet them, there is something that you need to look at. Why did this not happen? And it does not mean necessarily that the program is not continuing if one of the conditions is not met. There's always a possibility to adjust if there are external circumstances that make that. But if it is because there are problems in policy implementation, then these criteria, are just something that are there to have a yardstick and something that would give you pause to see what is happening.
There are different claims in Nepal. I don't know either true or not. Eminent persons as well as the influential figures, ex-ministers. Many people are saying that IMF have given undue pressure to Nepalese authority, and they claim that through the ECF they are trying to micromanage the policies of the government. Is it true, or how do you respond on all these allegations?
I would like to come back to the argument that I made before, that we are supporting the government's program. This is a program that's agreed with the government, and in terms of what we are following is the government's program. So once we have agreed measures with the government, we consider this to be fully in line with what the authorities want and what their policy priorities are.
What is your assessment? The Nepalese government is dedicated toward the all reforms and how they are responding, how they are working. What are your assessments?
I think we have seen significant progress on the structural front. As I mentioned, there have been reforms taken that improve financial stability on the monetary side. There were supervisory measures that have been taken that improve the assessment of the soundness of the banking sector. Similarly, on the fiscal side, there were a number of measures that look at fiscal transparency. Those are key structural reforms. So on these fronts, we're quite happy with the progress that was achieved.
In your Article 4 report, you have highlighted the issues of big public enterprises owned by government of Nepal, and what factors have led to IMF to identify problem in the larger public enterprises.
Public enterprises can cause fiscal risk, because in the end, public enterprise have implicit guarantees from the government. So depending on how important public enterprises are, it requires to do an adequate fiscal risk assessment of those enterprises. Also, public enterprises in many cases get significant direct budgetary support, and public enterprises, depending again on the market structure, can impact on the competitive situation in the economy. Now, in Nepal, public enterprises are a very important part of the economy. So you will, in terms of looking at fiscal sustainability, you don't get around taking a careful look at public enterprises.
During COVID-19 pandemic, Nepal as well as many countries around the world have taken a bit expansionary monetary policies, and from fiscal side also government have given lots of relaxations to the people around, and that lead inflation, and the IMF has suggested that it's time to back from whatever facility had given. Do you believe that IMF and multilateral organizations, many multilateral, had failed during the time of COVID to recommend appropriate policies to the governments? What do you take?
I mean, you have to recall that at the time of COVID, first of all, we were in an unknown territory, and the most important measure that needed to be taken was to support lives and liveliness. So expenditures to support health care and to support economies, to avoid excessive scarring. That was the first priority. Now, how you exit is important, and I would say that these expenditures, to the extent that they avoided scarring, will also contribute to avoiding, unemployment and later higher level of inflation. But clearly, there was a monetary overhang to some extent that was created. Now, at that point, other factors came to bear that had a big significant impact on overall inflation. I mean, most important, Russia's war in Ukraine, with it, increase in raw materials prices, increase in food prices. So all of this together contributed to the measured inflation that we saw. But I would want to emphasize that the policies at the time of COVID have really contributed to, literally saving lives. So I would not say that at this situation, inflation was the most important consideration.
IMF is continuously raising the issues on the Nepal's financial institutions' health. I mean, why IMF is saying about the financial institutions' health. I mean, they are questioning about them and asking to do audits from the independent auditors. What is the reason behind that?
So at this stage, our assessment is that the Nepal financial system is adequately capitalized and has access to a lot of liquidity. However, as you know, there has been a period of very high credit growth, and the experience is that high credit growth leads to higher non-performing loans, and that is what we see at this point. So we see at this point non-performing loans going up significantly. So Nepali banks need to repair their balance sheets, and the exact capitalization is unclear. So we need to assess where we stand with the financial system. In addition, during COVID, some of the prudential requirements were significantly lowered. So the actual, you get a relatively good picture simply from looking at the numbers of non-performing loans, but there was forbearance, and therefore the actual situation is a little bit unclear, and therefore audits at this stage are needed. In addition, you have also a non-bank sector that is less well understood and less well regulated than the banking sector. That too is an area where we need to focus to avoid significant problems that could spill over into the broader economy.
Nepal, earlier you had also mentioned Nepal had taken lots of good practices in fiscal sides also. Do you have any recommendation to the government of Nepal to change the things on current budgetary practices? Fiscal side budgeting practices of government of
budgeting Nepal. Practices. Yeah, I think the issue is that the budget has to become more realistic. I mean, in Nepal we had seen a big discrepancy between the budget and the actual implementation. So what we need is more and better data collection, more and better follow up on the implementation of the budget. And I know there is there's technical assistance working on that. But at this stage, I think it's really important that the budget becomes a more realistic document.
My last question is, Nepal, after Nepal had taken the federal structures, as Nepal adopted federal structures just 6-7 years back, the current expenditure is swept off after the different institutions have been created. In light of these things, many people in Nepal also questioning about the financial stability and many other things also. How do you see this scenario, and what measures have to be taken to manage all the things financially, from financial aspects?
Yeah, I mean, implementation of a decentralized fiscal system is technically complicated. So I think we have seen progress. So there have been some monitoring systems that have been successfully put in place, but there are fiscal risks monitors at the subnational level that still need to be implemented. I think it is work in progress, and as you mentioned, duplication is a real problem. So looking at how other countries have done this will be important, and approaching this with a view of really doing it in the most efficient way is very important. But I would say that that there has been work started, and there is awareness of the issue, and there is awareness that the necessary risk structures in each of the units need to be implemented. So I think it's sort of a glass half full at that stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.